now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I am a cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court appointed and private, marriage counseling, dissociative identity disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, and so much more. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Counseling and Therapy Services at 301-325-1550. Now, today, I'm very excited to have at our podcast a very special guest, author, and psychotherapist, just like me, Dr. Canute White. Just like every of my past episodes, I will leave it up to him to properly introduce himself, as no one can do a better job as himself. Doc, the floor is yours, my friend.
Hey, Dr. Dan, good morning. It's nice to be here. It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me. I am, as you have said, Dr. Canute White. I am Jamaican. Your audience will hear the accent going, right? However, I live in the United States. Growing up in Jamaica, it was a very difficult journey. It's a third world country, and you would understand the challenges that is inherent in third world countries. But I grew up in poverty, no doubt. A very, very, caring mother, father who was an alcoholic. But I have moved through that eventually and achieved academically and otherwise with 2 masters, a doctorate, naturally a bachelor's, and I continue my education doing a master's in public administration at this time. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm an author. Back in Jamaica, I was a justice of the peace. Here in Florida, where I live, I am a notary public, and I've been doing well for myself, a psychotherapist.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you very much for this intro, Doc. So tell me, since when you were living in Jamaica and you were going through difficult challenges, what brought you to the United States? Well, how did you manage, despite the very big challenges that most of the citizens of Jamaica are suffering from, which is lack of food or lack of shelter or water, clean water, that is. What have you done to be able to manage to get out of this environment and find yourself in the United States?
Yeah, let me clarify something though, because despite the third world countryship of Jamaica, it's really at this in between, perhaps between the first world and the third world, because in terms of clean water, it's there and so on. It's not very bad, but in terms of individual families, right, there might be a challenge acquiring the basic needs, right? For me, I was having a challenge sometimes finding food because of the domestic challenges in my family. My mother wasn't working, right? And we find so many families have that sort of challenges. But in aggregate, Jamaica, is not that poor. But I migrated to the United States several years ago. And I become a citizen and so on. But there's a difference, and in fact, the United States, the principles of the United States, as another country for me, my second country, helped me to progress in many ways. So yes, I must appreciate both my countries.
Yes, that I agree. Do you go visit often back there, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The pandemic has not allowed that recently. You know you know the challenges, right? But yeah, I love the United States and I love my Jamaica. They're 2 countries I know of. I'm fortunate, I guess.
Do you still have family left out there, Dr. Canute?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I still have family.
And brothers and sisters, any?
Sisters.
Sisters. Okay. Perfect. Now tell me the challenges from coming from Jamaica to the United States and going through a lot of different education, and was there a difficult transition from that country to this one, or how did you manage with the culture shock?
Oh yes, the culture shock was difficult for me, right? You would realize that I came here as an adult, and that's where the difficulty lies, because when you transit from one country to another as an adult, the language barrier, that's that's the main thing that might be a challenge. You'll hear the strong Jamaican accent, even though I'm speaking English, right? And there are certain persons who might not have understood my accent, and that for me was a challenge because the frustration that it creates, persons that understanding my accent, and then I'm trying to get them to understand, to clarify what I'm trying to say. And the reverse is also true, that that the United States is a melting pot culture, and therefore there are persons who I am not able to understand their accents as well, and that's for me was a challenge. The whole thing about the Jamaica is a British country, so to speak, in terms of the Commonwealth, and the way we spell things back in Jamaica, the way we maneuver the English language back in Jamaica, it's sort of different here, right? This thing about schedule, direct, and
Yes.
so on.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so the culture shock was sort of odd for me coming here.
And the educational system in the United States, Dr. Canute, do you feel that was also something difficult to transition into from studying in Jamaica to studying here in the US?
I will always say this, Dr. Dan, and we use the British system back in Jamaica, right? And what happened in my mind, the British system is more difficult. Having being able to maneuver both system, I realized that the British system is more difficult. So therefore, it would have been easier for me moving through the US system.
But then when it comes to the doctor degree and the many different masters, do you feel that the level of teaching or the level of education here in the upper level, which is like in the doctorate and masters compared to bachelors, do you feel that there was like a very big difference in terms of what you've learned in Jamaica and what you've learned here?
Not that the disparity is not too wide.
Okay.
Definitely, because concepts are concepts.
Correct.
And you'd appreciate that, Doc. And so therefore the disparity wouldn't be too wide. It's just that the way it is being taught, right? But it wasn't wide.
Okay. But when you come, of course, I mean, mental illness in the US or mental illness in Jamaica is the same. DID here or DID in Jamaica is the same, or anxiety or depression. So yes, but when it comes to the way of, let's say, if you did a master degree in business
Right.
US, the rules of accounting, etc., are different than the rules in Jamaica. So learning a business degree in Jamaica will be different than here in the US, unless if they do more international kind of studies.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. So all right. My doctorate is in education,
Okay.
right? With a organizational leadership concentration, right? Let's say concentration instead of minor. I have done organizational studies back in Jamaica, because I have a master's in organizational studies, and the principles are the same, but what I've realized though, in the US, because the social system is different.
Correct. Yes.
In terms of the application, right? While the course is being taught, that's where the disparity comes in, right? In terms of the application. But it wasn't difficult for me to understand, because as we have said, concepts are concepts.
Yes. And you have the base.
The base was there.
Exactly. So you just have to kind of tweak it a little bit.
Definitely.
Now, the fact that you have advanced yourself in the educational system and have done several masters, a doctorate degree, a license in psychotherapy, do you feel that the market here in the United States is, I would say, a much better market, because of course the amount of population that we have here compared to Jamaica, that's a given. But do you feel that you have transitioned fully here in the mentality, the culture in the US compared to, because like as you said, you left when you were an adult in
Right.
Jamaica. So you have been raised with certain methods, certain ways, etc. So do you feel that you have completely transitioned, or you still kind of like adapt the same culture as you did in Jamaica?
I like that. I'm transitioning. No, I'm not completely transitioned. I think it would be a difficult thing based on the fact that I came here as an adult, right? So the transition would be difficult, and it's going to be a long journey, right?
Yes.
You know, because I have done so much back in Jamaica. I have learned so much, and it's a matter of tweaking, as the word that you have used, or unlearn certain things in order to learn, relearn certain things back here in the United States. So I am still transitioning as it relates to that. As it relates to psychotherapy, the comparison, right? Jamaica and the United States, the market, it's sort of the same if the market means persons with mental illnesses, persons with needs for psychotherapy. It's the same. However, the system here in the United States is different. And I figure based on the access to insurance and other elements of the whole process, the United States, persons in the United States are more able to go to therapy than persons in Jamaica, because in Jamaica the fact that insurance are not that prevalent,
Yeah.
right? And then there will be a challenge. But
Um, do you feel that there's a stigma behind mental illness in Jamaica versus here in the US? It's more accepting. Do you feel there's a difference there, Doc?
oh yes, yes. Here in the United States, it's more accepting. Um, Take for instance, you know, we have the individual stigma and the familial stigma. You know, if somebody in the family have a mental challenge, then the entire family will be stigmatized. You know, back in Jamaica, right? I'm not seeing that much here in the United States, right? But there is still elements of stigmatization across the board, but I'm seeing less stigma in Jamaica, in the US than in Jamaica.
So it's more accepted because more, let's say, compared to Jamaica, as you said, the whole family will be stigmatized versus
Right,
the US, it's more of an isolated. So if, let's
right,
say, a member of the family has mental illness, they will focus primarily on that person, and now the whole family will be seen as suffering from that same mental illness.
right, definitely.
But at the same time, when it comes to, for you, like in your practice, do you
Mhm.
feel that you have a lot of people that are hesitant if, let's say, they're not as open-minded versus in Jamaica, they will speak more freely?
You know, it's something I always believe, and I've expressed this. In Jamaica, I realized because it's really expensive to see a therapist,
Okay.
right? It might cost up to 9,000 Jamaican dollars. It's well, comparing it here, it's
Compared to
somewhere around
living.
$60 here, but it's a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? So a person who is suffering or living with mental challenges might just find some other ways to cope, right? Might smoke, might go to the bar, in terms of
Yeah.
becoming intoxicated, find ways to deal with the pain, instead of spending that money here in the United States, because of the insurance, the availability of the insurance. Persons will more see the therapist.
They have
You
more
know,
choices,
more choices here
options, more.
in,
Yeah. Okay.
in terms of seeing the therapist,
Yes.
but more choices in Jamaica in terms of not seeing the therapist.
Yeah. That's actually a very good, interesting
Yeah.
comparison. Now, for you, if, let's say, in your case, Dr. Canute, with the different, the transitioning part, what do you do to be able to teach your patient about happiness, about how to cope with their mental challenges or mental illnesses? Do you have a specific way to be able to educate them?
Oh yeah. I for me, I like to say first my concept of happiness. I never think that we can be 100% happy.
Okay.
Happiness is like energy in my mind. It can be depleted. Potential, yeah, waiting. There are things out there, there are stimuli out there that waiting for you to make you happy, right? I call that potential happiness.
Okay.
And there are kinetic happiness. And you know, I'm aligning this to energy, potential energy and kinetic energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And therefore, there are things that my client would need to understand as it relates to happiness. First, they need to understand that, hey, happiness is like energy. It can be depleted. You will not be 100% happy. And I like to suggest, Dr. Dan, that it's important to be sad then glad. I use that because a lot of times when you are glad, too happy, euphoric, then you end up um, being bounced around more when it becomes when you face disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
The thing just didn't happen that you were expecting to happen. So the impact is more drastic if you are glad before you become sad. So in other words, just have an open mind.
Okay.
Think that anything is possible. That's what I mean by being sad, then glad.
Is it, I mean, the fact that you said the concept of you cannot always be happy and energy cannot be depleted or created, the thing is that when you have people who are sad and when they become happy, is it because they will appreciate it more, so then they will not take happiness for granted?
Well, in order to be sad, then glad, right? When you're sad, and I remember, you know, this term sad is used loosely, right? Sad is basically have an open mind, right? And if you have an open mind that anything is possible, right? It all speaks to the impact if you are disappointed. Because Dr. Dan, you know that we our mind, it works so hard, right? We think about things before it even happens, right? I am thinking about what to say before you finish talking,
Yeah.
right? That's it. That's psychological.
Yes.
So our mind keep working, and a lot of times our mind keeps saying, "Hey, this is going to happen well. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay." But what if you're not? If it ends up that you're not okay? If the thing that you believe will happen to make you happy, that potential happiness, right, just didn't work out, didn't turn out to be happiness, right? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tougher than if you had said to yourself, hey, anything is possible.
So then, those who have been like the big movement of the laws of attraction, okay,
Right,
where thoughts become things. Now,
right.
you've read the book The Secret from Rhonda Byrne and all the other books that are relates to that same topic. What I have seen is like, okay, well, if I'm thinking about, like abundance, or I'm thinking about, health and prosperity, etc., then it will happen. So, but then when it doesn't happen, do people just take affirmative action to be able to make the things what they're thinking about to happen? Or if it doesn't happen the way they want, is it just, okay, well, I'm going to brush it off and try to find an alternative? I mean, what is for you, the laws of attraction? Do you think it's something that is just frivolous? Do you think it's just, like not existent? Because then again, people who do not know, who do not put the belief and action behind their thoughts, the thoughts will not become reality.
Yeah, but you see, my belief is that yes, we talk about the mind and the power of the mind. However, we also know that the mind can be deceptive because we live outside of ourselves, Doc. There are many things happening around us. The whole COVID virus thing will tell us. There are many things happening around us that we're not so much in control of. So therefore, I don't believe that what we think in most cases that is what is going to happen because there are powerful factors outside of us
Yes.
that will change where we go, where our mind tried to take us. So we have to understand that there are outside factors that will challenge our quest for happiness, and we can't do anything about it.
Okay, so let's say for you, you had a goal in your mind to be able to say, I'm going to go for my master's, I'm going to do my doctorate. You studied, you did everything that you, and you reach that level. So that was in your thoughts originally. Do you feel that your journey to reaching, to getting your degrees, has it rerouted you somewhere else? Because it appears that you were thinking about getting your degree and you made it happen. So there's nothing in between or external factors that change your path because
Yeah,
you had that desire. So if someone has that desire, that means that they can reach their goals.
right. But perhaps nothing had changed my path. But you see, if you're going to be using um, this example, my example, there are other persons who there might be external factors that change the path. Because, like for instance, lack of financial resources to
Yes,
finish that degree.
correct.
Something happened in their lives, death of someone, the female got pregnant and cannot balance school and pregnancy and so on. So it in the for different individuals, right? There might be things, external factors, as I said, that will affect the journey. But you know, Dr. Dan, the journey is what
Fun
is
part.
where the happiness comes from.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. I heard someone said recently in a program, and I don't forget that he's a mountain climber, Doc. And he's saying that when you reach up there, you cannot spend too long up there. And it's really the journey, the people you meet, the experience you have going up there. But when you go up there, it's like a short time and you have to be down again, right? So so I sort of tie that in, align that to studying and so on. It's a journey. The papers that you have to do, the people you meet while you're getting that degree, But getting the degree, that's not where the happiness comes. The degree itself,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a journey.
Because I think you make a very good point in terms of, yeah, you are proud at the end of that journey, but then you tell to yourself, what's next? Then you always come up with another challenge because I think, yeah, as you said, the happiness comes into the journey. The
Yeah,
destination is just icing on the cake.
yeah,
But the destination is very short-lived because after we reach destination, we tend to always look for something else, for another challenge, for another journey, for another path that we want to take in life. So it
yeah.
never really ends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for
Yeah,
example, you said to yourself, Elon Musk, he's the richest man on earth.
right.
Okay. Um, he has over, like, his wealth is over 310 billion. How much more money can he ask for? But in the back of his mind, it's not about the money. It's about what is my next journey?
Yeah.
What is my next goal? For him, this is how he thrived. This is how he finds his own happiness. But like, for example, like, what is, okay, let me ask you, Doc, what is your definition to happiness?
My definition to happiness is the journey, as I've said, the journey that you have experienced while going to a particular destination, right?
Okay.
Or to a particular thing that you'd like to achieve, to your achievement. Because look, this thing about frustration, what we know as frustration in psychology is that there is this barrier between your goal and you,
Yes.
right? And when you reach that barrier, that's when you become frustrated, right? So happiness is the goal. You are here, but that journey must be cleared. That journey must be cleared. And the barriers, there are several barriers that can prevent you from being happy. We talked about them before. Your relationships, not necessarily intimate relationships, because your relationship at work, your relationship with others, your resources, yeah, can create a challenge while you strive for happiness, right? You want a home and you're trying to save for that home. Something else happens, split that saving in two, right? So yeah, the journey to happiness is the experience that you have, and you know, the things you have to pull down to reach there. So it ties into the whole thing about frustration and the barriers that you might face along the way.
So now, how do you deal with frustration, Doc? How do
Okay,
you manage those, for example?
okay. For me personally, I wait, I observe, I try to find ways. Look, you might not find ways to deal with frustration immediately. You have to be an observer.
Okay.
Observe your own lives. This thing about SWOT analysis, it's a business concept:
Mm-hmm.
strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats.
That's yeah.
We have to apply that to our lives as we move through frustration. What are the strengths that we have? What are the weaknesses? How can we turn these weaknesses into strengths or eliminate those weaknesses? What are the opportunities out there, right? So that I can deal with the barriers that cause the frustration.
Correct.
What are the threats that in order for me to reach my goals? And some of these threats are basically those barriers that are there. So for me, I observe, I use the SWOT, and I would suggest that others use the SWOT analysis. It's not only a business concept, it's a concept that can be used in your personal life.
Okay, I see. Well, that's actually an interesting approach on how to combine what the SWOT is when it comes to your business versus
Yeah,
the SWOT in your own personal life. But
correct.
then there's a lot of people that just give up after the first barrier. They give up when challenges happen. They feel that maybe it's a sign of the universe that tells me to stop, to not move forward. What is your, when let's say you come up with a challenge, do you see it as a warning or do you see it as a personality test?
It can be both. It can be a warning, right? And when it's a warning, it's mean that that's the most important thing that push you to think to use the SWOT, right? When you see it as a sort of a personal test, right? You might believe that, okay, it's just a test, so let me rest back. It will get easier eventually. But you have to be sure, Dr. Dan. You have to be sure what you see it as, right? What it really is, right? Not what you see it as, what it really is. You have to be sure, right? Because it can affect where you go from there. But there are many persons who look at that giant barrier and say, hey, I can face this barrier.
Okay.
And guess what they do? They redirect. They will beat up on someone else. They will, and that's where domestic violence comes in. That's where conflict with others comes in. And perhaps that's where crime comes in. Because there is this barrier, there's this frustration, and I can't deal with this barrier, so let me beat up on someone else. And therefore, I will get this sense of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about a perceived happiness, pretense happiness, because happiness might just not be real.
Oh, so then you would say it's an illusion.
Yeah.
So it's like living in the matrix. It's like,
Yeah.
is our life real? I mean, if you dream big, do you think this is an illusion?
It can be an illusion because in my mind and in my opinion now, because it's okay to dream big, because I've dreamt big growing up, right? I've been doing that. But it's an illusion, but it can become a reality. It depends on your approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this thing about faith without work is death. So therefore, you're dreaming big, but what are you doing to get big?
That's true. Yeah.
So
Putting
so
action.
the action is important. So it can be a real, it can be an illusion, really. But the next flip side, the flip side to that is what you do, the action.
So if I would ask you to summarize or to give one main piece of advice to all of our listeners regarding your own approach to finding happiness. Okay, now again, you said you're telling that happiness is it can be temporary. It can be an illusion.
Right.
If you don't put action and belief behind your dream, you have nothing. And this is the majority of people. They just dream and dream, but when it comes to putting action, they actually stop on their track because they are afraid.
Right.
So for you, what would you say to all of our listeners in terms of what would you advise as a psychotherapist?
Mhm. We have to you have to know first that happiness is not 100%. You cannot be 100% happy.
Mhm.
You have to get that in your mind, in your head, because if you don't, that will create a sense of sadness. So be aware. And along the journey towards happiness, you have to have an open mind that anything can happen, right? You have to do that. However, see happiness as energy. It can be depleted.
Mhm.
It can be depleted, but always strive for that happiness, no matter what happens. Always strive because it's real. It exists. I'm just saying that it can be depleted and it will not be 100%, right? So keep trying and keep an open mind no matter what happens because life is good. And as we say, you have to be, to work on it, you have to be active in the pursuit of your dream and in the pursuit of happiness.
Wow, Mr. Canute. That is all the time we have for today's podcast. I do appreciate so much the time that you took out of your very busy schedule to join us. Again, thank you for participating and inspiring our many listeners. Now, we hope you have all enjoyed today's episode, and I'm very excited about the many upcoming guests we have for scheduled for the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one you listened to today. Now, here are a few concluding words of wisdom. Everyone has the power to visualize. When you visualize, then you materialize. Your thoughts become things. You must first change your thinking in order to change your circumstances. You have the power to change your life. Now, by repeating thought become things, you let it seep into your subconscious mind and your awareness. You start believing it, breathing it, and experiencing it. The rest will materialize in front of you. Do not fret the little details as to how it will happen, but more a question of when. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.